What's up everyone, we are back with another Biomutant video. Today we are going to go over the Biomutant 1.4 patch notes that were released about an hour ago. As we can see from the Biomutant official Twitter page, the devs have stated, 1 week after release, we gathered up all your feedback, added some bug fixes, and crafted a shiny new patch for Biomutant on PC. After clicking on the hyperlink, it will then take you to the patch notes, which have been posted in the Steam community for Biomutant. Hopping into the patch notes, the developers have provided us with a full changelog for the update they just launched. The entire patch will roll out on PC first, and then consoles as soon as possible. So, unfortunately, the patch is not available on console at the moment, but it is currently being worked on and will hopefully roll out within the next few days, if not early next week. As for us PC players, the specific issues regarding crashes with AMD-based CPUs with built-in graphics are resolved. And crashes, when device info contains invalid display data on AMD-based CPUs, are also resolved. Tutorial area. In order to improve the pacing of the early parts of the game, we've edited dialogues to be shorter. We've also added more enemies and loot to these areas to better represent the experience later in the game. Added more early enemy encounters. Added missing loot in empty trenches outside Jagni Fortress. Added item drop chance for Bunker 101 crates. Updated best before memory to decrease the distance between the nanos and the penside tree. Removed some parts of out-of-date and best befores dialogues to improve pacing. Removed multiple dialogue fragments to shorten tutorial area length. Removed some parts of Goop and Gizmo's dialogues to improve pacing. Removed multiple camera presentations to improve pacing. As of now, new players who hop into Biomutant, or players who are doing a new game plus, should have an overall better experience with the tutorial area of the game. These changes seem to give newer players an early game head start since more enemies and loot will be available. On to the more pressing matters. Dialogue and narrator. Reduce the amount of gibberish spoken before the narrator starts translating. Added dialogue setting toggles for gibberish and narrator, allowing players to select if they want to hear the narrator, the gibberish, or both when talking to NPCs. Fixed narration and gibberish playing silently and producing an awkward pause when each corresponding volume setting is set to 0 instead of skipping the sound entirely. Remove the text delay animation when either gibberish or narration is disabled. These changes are amazing. I, for example, could not stand the amount of gibberish I had to listen to before the narrator started intervening to translate. I would prefer the narrator just speak for them, instead of translating what they are saying. That, however, is only because the NPCs are not understandable themselves. And that really grinds my gears. Difficulty settings. Added extreme difficulty setting, where enemy damage and attack rate is further increased. Fixed difficulty settings not being applied for already spawned enemies. New Game Plus. Opened up all class perks for New Game Plus. When starting a New Game Plus, the player will now be able to unlock perks from all classes. This will be amazing. I have been wanting to play with the other classes' perks. Now I just need to finish the game first. Settings. Added motion blur slider to the settings. Fixed so the camera setting auto adjust greater than player also applies for combat. If turned off, the camera will no longer try to frame enemies while in combat. Fixed depth of field toggle not being applied in dialogues. Finally, I can turn off motion blur. I really don't understand why looter games don't all come out with some specific standards these days. Motion blur toggle should always be available on release, and so should locking our items. Items and loot. Increased chances that items found have a level requirements closer to the player's actual level when found. Players will still be able to find items with higher level requirements, but the player level is now taken into account. Removed common item loot drops from high-level loot crates. Reduced the amount of healing items that the player will find from crates and defeated enemies. Increased base damage from melee bodies, handles, and add-ons by approximately 5%. Reduced base damage from ranged bodies, muzzles, and grips by approximately 5%. Fixed resistance stats not being applied for crafted gear when adding add-ons. Reduced gear add-on resistance and critical chance bonuses. Ensured that quest reward diver's helmet will no longer drop as random loot. Removed slots from all protective suits. I do not know about you guys, but I have found so many healing items, it is not even funny. I am also so happy that the resistance and crit chances are fixed. Man, that was annoying. Sound. Updated melee sound effects across the board. Updated mount sound effects volume. Added sound effects for Tribe War Trebuchet. Updated sounds when the player lands inside HQ after being launched from the catapult. I did notice a sound issue when getting launched from the catapult. Good to see I wasn't hearing things wrong. Alright, now for the next section. This one is a bit of a doozy, and contains a bunch of changes, so I am going to speed up a bit. Listen closely. Combat. Fixed issue with abnormally high damage output due to consumable top mod applying meta damage multiple times during equipping and unequip. Fixed ability damage not being able to inflict critical hits. Reduced Deadeye Sharpshooter perks damage multiplier from 2.0 to 1.25 to ensure that it is comparable to other perks. Disabled end of combat slow motion camera for short combat scenarios. Adjusted valid angles for combat targets to reduce camera movement in combat. Disabled camera look at when striking characters up in the air. Fixed a few cases where air striking would not complete its last attack. Adjusted speed of some enemy grabs. It is now a bit easier to dodge them in time. Fixed kick attack from smaller enemies being too difficult to parry. Parry window is now more consistent and enemies can be staggered out of it. All Tribe Sifis and Loopalupin in the final encounter now react stronger to being parried, allowing players to parry and then counterattack. Fixed issues with tracking on Jagni staff attacks. First 3 hits will no longer overshoot targets and the dodge attack is more reliable. Fixed sometimes spawning double death particle effects on defeated enemies. Fixed issue with Pichu Nanchoke not stopping its animation. Fixed larger enemies with melee weapons animating too quickly at slow walking speeds. Adjusted hit reactions for Morks to make melee more viable and satisfying to use. Fixed issue with dodge shooting while reloading not moving the character correctly. Fixed issue with airstrike sometimes being cancelled. Adjusted the range for melee attacks to improve enemy tracking and reduce misses. Fixed issue where the melee gap closer would sometimes overshoot. Fixed backward attack for crush weapons resulting in a miss most of the time. Adjusted animations for unarmed and glove attacks to be faster. Fixed issue where the player would sometimes become stuck underneath larger enemies after being knocked to the ground. Added ability to slide underneath legs of titans. Fixed issue where the player would sometimes get stuck inside an enemy after a vault or leg slide move. Fixed issue where the player would sometimes get stuck inside an enemy after airstrike. Adjusted sound and rumble effect for successful parry to improve feedback. Fixed issue where airstrike would cause enemies to be launched very far. Improved aiming for Jumbo Puff when throwing rocks. So, I am not trying to be that guy, but the Jumbo Puff does need better tracking with those rocks. Next up, quests and achievements. Fixed game progress not being able to reach 100% due to unavailable quest states within a single playthrough. Fixed back to the roots quest sometimes not being completed. Adjusted Tribe War flow to be more robust. Fixed the Old World Gadgets trophy correctly unlocking after finding Old World Gadgets. Crash fixes. Fixed crash when moving objects between areas using telekinesis. User interface. New weapon Wung Fu is now only unlocked when the player has crafted a new weapon instead of being unlocked when looting an individual component. Added correct fast travel locked message when attempting to fast travel while climbing a ladder or falling. Added mercenary DLC indicator to the main menu. Added dark backdrop to QTE prompts to improve readability on lighter backgrounds. Moved comic book effects to ensure that the counter QTE prompt is visible. Reversed hypoxia warning % value to be consistent with other zones. Added fading to enemy and friendly markers at 30 meters distance to reduce HUD clutter. Just in case you do not know what QTE is, that means QuickTime Event. The hypoxia warning % value did confuse me for a bit as well. I was always wondering why it was going the opposite way of the other four. Just figured it was a special type of death lol. And then there were 2. World. Remove several area objectives from Suburbia, as they are tied to the Moog quest and could cause confusion. Replaced a couple of NPC tasks that didn't work as intended. Added missing no rain volume to the sewer entrance at oil fields to prevent indoor rain effect. Subnautica station is now fully covered by correct post-process volume. Improved look for indoor puddles. Fixed issue where the player was able to fall through the world in the Myriad Fortress. Fixed issue where the player was able to fall through the world in an Ankati outpost. Fixed issue where big oil planes were possible to walk on. Fixed oil field monsters presentation camera being triggered underground. Fixed area objectives for Gutway 6G counting the incorrect amount of superb loot. Last, but not least we have miscellaneous. Disabled fast travel when jumping from water. Fixed issue where the unspeakable hand Wong Fu could cause NPCs to fall through water surfaces instead of drowning. Fixed issue with rocket NPC being stuck in air after the explosion. Fixed issue with rocket NPC explosion particle effects popping when being removed. Adjusted freefall duration needed for mounts to trigger hard landing. Fixed attribute check labels in puzzles incorrectly being displayed as loot chance instead of intellect. Fixed infinite jump while using photo mode. Fixed fireflies not spamming narration when caught. Fixed child memories being auto-completed when opening photo mode. Fixed some doors opening after using photo mode. Fixed smoke from burning villages sometimes being rendered as stripes on AMD GPUs. Adjusted default camera pitch up a bit so it's not positioned directly behind the player. Fixed resistance being reset after modifying appearance. I knew there was another way my resistance was resetting, even when I was not messing with the add-ons. I feel like there is still one more way to reset the resistances, but here's to hoping there isn't. Anyway, that is the 1.4 Biomutant patch out for PC right now. It is about a 34 megabyte update, so it is fairly small. I hope you all have enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, like, comment, and subscribe. I'll catch you all in the next video.